Oh, hello. Oh, right. Remember about the shark? In the tank, Echo was still shaking with terror as they crept back to their hiding place behind the sea biscuits crate. She hugged herself tightly and stroked Gilbert's scales, which were white with shock. They would just be fine as so long as they kept hidden, she told herself. After all, the shark was in the tank and they were out here, just as long as they didn't get caught by old Gus, that was. There was a rumble of engines from the rear and Obsidian shuddered to life. We're off, said Horace. But where to? Echo replied. The Aqualibra vaults, that pirate said. Have you ever heard of them? No. I suppose it doesn't matter where they are, Echo said with a shiver. Anywhere on land is better than being trapped in here. Horace nodded stiffly, but didn't say anything. Echo took in his exhausted face. We should try to get a little sleep too while we can. I'll take first watch. Horace settled himself behind a great crate of gunpowder and lay down, his eyelids drooping. Gilbert curled comfortably around Echo's neck and closed his eyes too, but Echo kept herself propped up with her back to a barrel, the glow jar on her knees. She had to stay positive. With any luck, they'd moor somewhere near Sleepy Palms and she and Horace would be able to sneak out and find the Scarlet Margaret. They were due some good luck, weren't they? The floor tilted and Echo felt Obsidian shudder and lift into the air. She glanced at Horace, who had already given in to sleep and was snoring softly. Guilt suddenly twisted in her stomach. He'd come to stay for a relaxing break and she'd put him in danger. Again. They were flying, but where to, and what would they do when they got there? Echo's throat tightened. Why had she ever thought this would be a good idea? Chapter 13. Echo was slowing down. Echo felt a tug on her sleeve and shook herself awake. For a moment, she'd forgotten where she was. Then she took in the barrels and crates that filled the hold of the Obsidian, and the panic of the night before flooded back. Horace's worried face peered down at her in the weak light of the glow jar. I think we must be here. He looked around nervously, wherever here is. Echo staggered to her feet and blinked the sleep from her eyes. Gilbert shook himself and stretched on her shoulder. The hold was eerily still without the rumble and roar of the engines at full power, and every time the ship let out a creak, Horace jerked his head around in panic. There was a clank, and this time they both jumped as heavy boots rattled down the ladder. Horace quickly pocketed the glow jar and they shrank behind the crates as lamps flickered into action and the hold was flooded with light. Do you know where we are? Whispered Horace. I don't know. Let me see. Horace stood up and squinted as the overhead lights lit up the hold. Footsteps rang out on the metal floor and Gilbert froze on Echo's shoulders, his scales glowing scarlet for danger. Echo shrank back behind a crate as a pirate came towards them. His dark hair was twisted into greasy spikes and he wore the short shark tooth collar of the thunder sharks around his throat, although his face was hidden in shadow. His heavy boots made the floor shake and his knuckles glinted with solid silver rings. With a jolt, Echo realized Horace was still visible from where he stood, staring in horror at the pirate. Horace, she darted forward and grabbed his sleeve, pulling him back behind the crate. No, Horace whispered. They both watched in horror as the glow jar flew out of his jacket as if in slow motion and sailed through the air. Echo's heart clenched as the jar spun away across the hold before disappearing from view. She could hear it still rolling across the riveted metal floor. The rolling stopped. The pirate's footsteps stopped. There was a pause and then a gruff voice said, "What's this?" No. Echo's eyes widened. Gilbert's scales paled to white, and Horace put both hands over his face. More footsteps came down the ladder. "It's a glow jar," said another voice, a woman's this time. "But where did it come from, Mai?" The first voice sounded angry. "There's someone in here." Horace gave Echo a stricken look. She glanced around, but there was nowhere for them to go. Loud footsteps marched towards them. Echo cowered beneath the crate as two pairs of feet came closer and closer. There was a crash and a shuffling as crates and barrels were heaved aside. "I know you're in here," yelled the man's voice. "Better come out now before we drag you out." Echo gripped Horace's hand. Gilbert had hid himself in her collar. Footsteps came closer, and Horace squealed as the crate they were hiding behind swung away with a gritty scrape. The pirate's ferocious, stubbly face leaned down at them. "What do we have here?" His face twisted into a grin. "Couple of kids." A second pirate, the one he'd called Mai, joined him. She was a big woman with swordfish tattoos up both arms and a head of black curls. "You two gonna regret this. Who you with?" Echo opened and closed her mouth. Should she tell him Lil was her mother? Would that scare them off? She took in the pirates' ferocious faces with a shiver. No, that might put them in even more danger. All the Sky Pirates clans were rivals now the hunt was on. She folded her arms and tried to look nonchalant. "We're not with anyone." "How'd you get in here?" Echo shrugged. Mai turned to Horace. "You got a voice?" Horace stared at the floor. "We just needed a ride." Mai glared at them both, then turned to the first pirate. "Check nothing's missing. I'll take them to old Gus." Ooh, going to old Gus. That's probably not a good thing. Echo glanced at the closed gangplank, but there was nowhere to go, and before she'd had a chance to attempt to run for it, the woman pirate had grabbed her and was holding her cutlass to Echo's throat. "No funny business," Mai snarled. She looked at Horace. "One wrong move and your friend gets it." The first pirate grabbed a coil of rope from behind the store piles and bound Horace's hands behind his back before turning to Echo and doing the same. "Move," said Mai, prodding Echo between the shoulders with the tip of her blade. Echo trudged up the ladder, blinking in the artificial light. Throughout the ship, pirates hurried here and there, readying obsidian for landing, only pausing briefly to stare at Echo and Horace as they were marched past. They were ushered through a maze of narrow corridors with walls of hammered metal plates before finally arriving at a closed steel door. Ferocious shouting came from inside. "Sounds like the boss is in a good mood," said Mai with a twisted smile. As she pushed open the door, Echo saw old Gus standing in the ship's cockpit with his back to them, waving his huge hands in fury. "Well, grease him," he bellowed. "Do something. He goes down that vent by hook or by crook." The rest of the Thundersharks murmured amongst themselves and turned as they heard Mai approaching with Echo and Horace. Gus jerked around, the tails of his taddy blue furs flying. "Something wrong, Captain?" asked Mai. "Damn boy won't fit in the hole." Old Gus waved his hand and shivered at Shivering Grub, who was being held by the ear by another ferocious-looking Thundershark. The pirate clutched a tape measure in his other hand. "I knew he was too generous with his rations." "We could starve him, sir," suggested the pirate with the tape measure. Grub let out a whimper and his chin trembled. "We can't wait around for that," old Gus screamed, spittle. But, Captain, the others won't have solved the clue as fast as yourself. They're not as clever as you are." I suppose that's true. Old Gus stroked his beard. "And they won't even know about the vent," chipped in another pirate. "They're not wise and knowledgeable like you." Well, we'll find out more about that the next time. Ha ha! Good night, Baba. I don't think they're in too much trouble, though, because there's still lots of book left. See? We're halfway through. If they were going to die, like if old Gus was going to throw them into the shark, there wouldn't be that much book left. It would just be like that much. They'd just be like about them getting munched up by the shark, like those pages. So I think they're going to be okay. Good night, my beautiful Baba. Here, catch this kiss. And this one. And one for me, please. No. Good night, my Baba.